In Chapter 9, a revelation with 0 strength and magic against enemies with 100 crit, we enter the great value addition of Fuga's Wild Ride. In a challenge where our units can die to a stiff breeze, it's a little distressing that this map is windy as fuck. My initial attempts at the map are met with abject failures, so I decided to take a brief detour to pick up some experience from the Mozu Paralogue and Invasion 1. In Mozu's Paralogue chapter, we get Mozu who has 0 strength and magic. In my Conquest 0 strength run, she was quite strong, but in this revelation challenge, all of her advantages are considerably diluted by the presence of better options. The biggest problem is that actually training her from level 1 proves to be incredibly difficult. In order to set up kills, I'd usually try to box the enemies in, but this requires having several units that can survive being attacked, plural, which is something I just don't have. I recruit Mozu and finish up the Paralogue and then also complete Invasion 1. The actual benefit for doing this ends up being a lot less than I initially thought, because I didn't have very much leeway to feed XP. The biggest gain from this diversion was probably the extra Dragon Vein points, which let me buy the other level 1 shops to forge a shuriken for Kaze. With all of this done, I go back into Chapter 9 with a bit more preparation. At the start of the map, we get Rinka, who has 0 strength and magic. Rinka is already a rather lackluster unit in the base game, and unsurprisingly, this challenge doesn't do her any favors. She's mostly useful as an early stat backpack and not much else. We start in the bottom middle of the map with aggressive enemies to the left and the right. I try several strategies, and I find that going to the right gets my units blown all over the place and annihilated, staying in the middle gets my units blown all over the place and annihilated, and trying to go straight for the boss gets Korin killed while everyone else is blown all over the place and annihilated. By a process of elimination after a process of being eliminated, I find that the safest place is probably the bottom left of the map, as the terrain there is most suitable for maintaining a solid position despite the wind mechanic. All that said, it's still not easy to do so. I try to make use of one-tile choke points to hold off enemies, but ill-timed winds scatter my units and constantly ruin my positioning, at one point forcing me into a tricky melee with 4 enemies. I use a Dragon Vein to blow enemies away and trap 3 of them behind Korin, but the 4th enemy remains unblocked and I don't have enough actions to take him out cleanly, threatening a casualty. Luckily, I get bailed out completely when Korin scores a Dragon Fang crit, so that was pretty nice. As more enemies move in, I have to resort to quite a lot of tricky positioning tactics since I struggle to kill anything, such as stacking defensive auras and a speed pair-up so the Tsubahi can somehow survive 1 crit, maneuvering to surround archers, and damaging enemies so they run away to heal instead of attacking. This is a fun AI quirk that I learned from the Birthright 100 crit challenge, because the enemy doesn't take actions on the assumption that they will have guaranteed crits, so sometimes they will prioritize other moves instead of going for the kill. These strategies are anything but consistent, but they were sufficient to make it through the waves of aggressive enemies, and once those have been dealt with, the map calms down significantly. The main difficulty in this challenge is dealing with multiple enemies at once, and passive enemies that can be lured and fought on an individual basis aren't too hard to deal with. That said, clearing the rest of the map still takes a lot of care, and the whole process ends up taking more than an hour. It was hard for me to take down Fuga while he was surrounded by his allies, but alone he isn't anything special since he lacks a 2-range weapon, so I just attack him from outside his range until he dies. This completes the map and rewards our diligence with Hayato, who has 0 strength and magic. Hayato is an interesting unit because his personal skill, Pride, grants a +4 damage bonus against higher level enemies. Unfortunately, what this actually means is that he is bad in a very unique way, as he is one of the few units that actually gets worse if you train him. Gaining levels will deactivate his personal skill against Revelation's glut of low-level enemies while not increasing his magic stat, which as per the challenge will remain at 0.